Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with our video review of the 2013 Mazda CX-5. This particular CX-5 is the Grand Touring all-wheel drive model, or basically the highest end model that you can buy. And it comes in with a sticker price of $30,400. If you had to weigh Mazda's viability as a car company long term, they are a smaller car company when you compare them to all the rest. This would really be the car that you'd judge because it's the newest model from the ground up. It has their newest design of all their cars. It's got their full set of what they call their Sky Active technologies, or their technologies to save as much fuel as possible. And if you were to judge it on this, the future does look good for Mazda. The CX-5 is a nice, compact SUV. The interior in here is very comfortable. You get, in the Grand Touring model, you get power seats and a fully adjustable, including tilt and telescoping steering wheel, so you can get into a good driving position. Visibility out's great. Materials in here are good. I think that's really the best description of them. There's soft touch stuff where it matters. The steering wheel feels good. The seats are well bolstered. It really does sort of give you a sporty impression as to how it's expected to be. Nothing's really all that bright. I think the only detractor that I've seen is they have the orange on the gauge pod for the climate controls, but the rest of the lighting in the car doesn't really match that, so it does feel a little disjointed. In this Grand Touring model, you get basically as much of a feature set as you can get in the compact SUV market. You get nav, which this one is by TomTom, so the interface is actually really intuitive, and in a lot of ways it might be the nicest of these inexpensive nav systems that we've experienced in smaller cars. Mazda gives you blind spot detection. This one's got dual zone climate control with heated seats. It's, again, from a content perspective, for $30,000, which isn't a small amount of money in all honesty, you do get quite a bit. The Grand Touring Tech Package, which this car also has, gets you high-intensity discharge headlights as well as adaptive front lighting so that headlights swivel as you drive at night. It's a good feature to have because the HIDs in this car do have a pretty distinct cutoff, so you can overdrive them pretty quickly at night if you're not using the high beams. The rest of the interior in here, the back seats are really pretty spacious in all honesty for something that's got such diminutive external dimensions. It'd be easily comfortable for 2 adults back there or 3 kids. And when you talk about the back seats and the rear cargo area, the one thing that needs to be pointed out is Mazda's done something just genius, and it's something that should be just copied by all the other manufacturers, and that's the fact that this car has 40, 20, 40 folding rear seats. So the middle section of the seats get a little latch in the back storage area that you can just pull, and it folds down just the centerpiece. You don't have to pick one side. So, for example, somebody like myself who typically drives around with 2 car seats in the back, if you still need to put something long in there, you can fold down that centerpiece and put any longer items that you're going to go pick up at your local home superstore. As I mentioned, the exterior of the CX-5 is Mazda's newest design language, as they're calling it, their Kudo design language based off of one of their concept cars. And they really have done a nice job with it. The front of it winds up being, sort of bolder and aggressive, and I think that's because the front face of it is almost perfectly flat. It stands out, and the headlights doesn't have the big smiley grin anymore. The rest of the car's proportions all work. The rear's nicely done. Overall, it's really a handsome little SUV, and it might be the pick of the litter when you get down to this segment of cars. The Skyactiv set of technologies that Mazda is baking into their newer cars really is a sort of group of four things: a engine design, a transmission design, weight savings, and aerodynamics. The engine in this is a very, very high compression ratio, naturally aspirated gasoline engine. And Mazda, since they are not the biggest of car companies, isn't resulting to hybrids or anything else. They're just trying to use every drop of gas as efficiently as possible. And it works quite well. The engine makes 155 horsepower and 150 foot-pounds of torque. The transmission is, I think, the most special part in some ways about the car. It blends a traditional automatic and one of the newer, dual clutch transmissions that people put in cars. Volkswagen's probably the most known for it at this point. And it really does work well. Automatic mode, it's hunting for fuel savings as much as possible, but if you bother to drive it in the manual shift mode, it's actually an enjoyable little thing, and it does allow you to keep the engine in a rev range where this thing needs to be motivated really well at all. What I think is most interesting about the suite of Skyactiv technologies is the fact that this car has traditional hydraulic power steering. It doesn't have one of the electric systems that most of the new cars do, and I think that's because Mazda still cares about the way their cars drive. And in that, they've done a really, really nice job with the CX-5. It is entertaining to drive. It's let down by an engine that just needs a couple more horsepower, in all honesty, especially in the all-wheel drive one. It seems like that all-wheel drive system in this car just saps enough of the power out of it that it does feel, I think the way it sort of struck me during the time we've had it, is anemic. It's like it needs a little bit of extra iron in its diet to do a little better. But again, that automatic transmission does a good job, and the steering and ride of this are really impressive. The only real flaw with the chassis and suspension and the ride of this car is at higher highway speeds. So at 55, it's perfectly fine. But if you get onto some of your higher speed limit highways and drive it at about 70, it does get a little busy from a ride perspective. And, it just doesn't feel all that composed at high speeds. So getting back to Skyactiv and the fuel economy of the CX-5, this particular one with all-wheel drive is rated at 25 city and 31 on the highway. If you get a two-wheel drive one with the manual transmission, which you can still get, and in all honesty, it's a rarity these days, so good for Mazda for still offering it, it'll get up to 35 on the highway. Like I said, this one's rated 25 city, 31 highway. We have been flat out abusive to the CX-5 in the time that we've had it. I mean, I have left it idling in the new, sweat lodge that is the East Coast of the United States these days for long periods. Been driving it more than aggressively, and the darn thing's still getting 26 miles per gallon, and it's actually impressive. I know 26 doesn't sound all that impressive, but I can tell you from the way it's been driven, it's actually done a pretty good job from a fuel economy standpoint. So the Mazda CX-5 winds up being a entertaining drive from a ride and handling perspective. It's comfortable in here. The tech that it has works really well. The back seats are good. Storage space is not class leading, but in all honesty, it's probably as good as you're going to need if you're shopping in this segment of cars. And speaking of this segment of cars, it's as competitive as anything out there. And Mazda really has put together a package that is very competitive. And in that, you have to give them some hope for the future. As usual, I'm Kevin Gordon from Autosavant.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.